Roughly 11 months ago, maybe a year ago by now, I don't know, could be longer even, BuzzFeed put a movie out there basically showing the world how privileged they are with use of the privilege walk activity. And this privilege walk basically should make apparent how privileged certain people are compared to other people within society. This is a physical activity. They ask you a few questions, and based on the answer of that question, you either take a step forward or take a step backward, and then it visualizes how privileged you are. Obviously, the further forward you stand, the more privileged you are, and the further in the back you remain, the less privileged you are. It's just a little, how would you call it? Practice of stupidity, in my humble opinion. And why do I think it's a practice of stupidity? Well, that's why I'm going to make this movie. Because they posted the questions that their privilege walk used under their post. And it kind of becomes very apparent that this is a stacked deck. I pronounced that wrong pretty badly. And therefore, I'm going to go and comment on every one of these questions. To me, it's fun. I hope you will enjoy it too. The first question they post is, if your parents worked nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back. Now, only certain jobs are day and night jobs. They're usually not the highest paying jobs. I mean, this could be anything from people working in transport or people working in healthcare. And the people that work these jobs are therefore not usually the richest persons. But there are, of course, exceptions. I mean, there are plenty of doctors out there that works during the night. I know of financial trader people that work nights because that way they can trade on markets outside of their own niche. For example, if you want to trade the Tokyo market, you're not going to use American office hours. So it's not a big weird one, but it is a little bit of a weird one. But on average, the lesser paying jobs are usually the ones that have day and night jobs, and the more organized office jobs usually do not. So already, if you're rich, take a step forward, or rather in this case, don't take a step forward. If you're not rich, take a step back. Remind yourself that I used the word rich where they did not, because I think you will find that this is mostly what it's really about, but that's not what they want it to be about. Question number 2. If you're able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault, take one step forward. Now, this is a very gendered question because we tell women how they should fear to walk the streets and how 1 in 5 of them are going to be sexually assaulted. Therewith, we are creating a dysphoria. We are making women scared of the world, even though sexual assault on men happens too, and even if we do not take prison rape into account, boys and men still get sexually assaulted. They tend to be less afraid of it though, because we don't tell boys or men to be afraid of sexual aggression. But women have every reason to be afraid, unfortunately. But so do men. Men have every reason to be afraid as well. But they don't get reminded of it every single time a feminist opens her mouth. So, yeah, the biggest fun part of this one is you're able to move throughout the world without fear of sexual assault. This is what you do. It's not about whether you are to be assaulted. It's whether you are afraid of it. So if you walk through a dark, dense forest in the middle of the night, it's still up to you whether you're afraid for sexual assault. Anyway, question 3. If you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward. Again, this is a loaded question. We tell people to be afraid. We allow certain biases to take place. BuzzFeed will tell you how Islamophobia is a thing and tries to deny that it's Islamic people that behave in a bad way towards people in a certain relationship. In most Western worlds, the average citizen doesn't care about your religion, your sex, or your relations. Only a small group does, but that group is oppressed according to the social justice warrior mindset. So they are not to blame. Society is to blame that those that feel oppressed by that small group feel oppressed. So if you are afraid to show your affection to your partner, for example, because you're a man and he's a man, then why are you afraid to show that affection? Because certain people might turn against you. Okay, but who are those certain people that turn against you? This is not government. This is not privileged or not privileged. This is certain people trying to push their ideas on your relationship. Something that isn't allowed in the Western world, but which still happens because we allow people who are not with the Western mindset into our society. Anyway, if you're afraid that this will happen, you can take a step forward. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical or mental illness, disability, take one step back. And this is just a thing of chance. And not every mental or physical disability is equal. But in this case, they treat them all equal. This is kind of unfair and unrealistic. How unfair? Okay, let's look at one of the many physical disadvantages you can have. You can have bad eyesight. This is a problem, unless of course you wear glasses. If you wear glasses, bad eyesight doesn't have to be a problem because you can have basically normal eyesight with glasses. Are you therefore disadvantaged because you have to wear glasses? Most people don't care whether you do or do not. Hell, it's even among certain groups a fashion item. I mean, there are people actually wearing glasses with normal glass in them because they have perfect eyesight. They just like to wear glasses because it looks cool. So why would someone wearing glasses take a step back? And the funny thing is, they probably wouldn't, because they no longer see it as a physical disability. But it is. And there are plenty of other physical disabilities or mental disabilities or illnesses that you can have, yet still have a perfectly normal life. Society isn't that harsh on people trying to live a normal life. Forward. If the primary language spoken in your household growing up was not English, take one step back. This one is beautiful. I mean, you're in America, and if your primary language isn't English, well, then you're being oppressed. You do realize that this is way more than half of the world. Even in America, it's a huge group. So a language is a sign of privilege. I can tell you this though. I mean, I know this is not about America now, but the royal family of Denmark didn't speak English at home. So they should take a step back because they are not privileged? If you come from a supportive family environment, take one step forward. Now this one is also very difficult because this is, again, how you perceive things. This is not what actually happened, this is what you feel happened. I mean, don't you think every family is supportive to their offspring? So are you now saying that the norm is privilege because families should be supportive? And being supported by a family is privilege, therefore the norm is privilege. Shouldn't it be the other way around? If you come from a family where people purposely try to hold you back, berate you, and used aggression on you, shouldn't you then have to take a step back? Because this is something holding you back. This is shaping you into a person with a lot of ailments. But no, if you come from a supportive family, you should take a step forward. If you ever tried to change your speech or mannerism to gain credibility, take one step back. Okay, I have a big problem with that one, because there is this old saying, when in Rome, act as the Romans do. We all must, at least once in our life, have done this. We have been in schools, workplaces, friend groups, when we go out, and then we notice a certain behavior, and we try to fit in. So we adjust our behavior. This means that everyone has to take a step back. But most people don't recognize that they do this. But everyone does it. So the ones that already feel that they are oppressed will say, yeah, that's me. But the ones that do not feel that they're oppressed might not recognize that it's them too. That then begs the question, are they oppressed because they are abrasive? Or are they actually oppressed? And to me, it seems that being abrasive means that you're going to be oppressed. Yeah, because you're abrasive. But those that change along with society also change along. They also change their speech or mannerism to gain credibility. But they do it because they want to do it, because they want to be part of society. This is kind of weird, because both of them should then take a step back. But only one we will see taking that step back, or at least in this test, as far as I can tell. If you can go anywhere in the country and easily find the kinds of hair products you need and all the cosmetics that match your skin color, take one step forward. This is brilliant. So when I go into a predominantly white area as a black person, and the shops there, they don't see a lot of black people. So they might not have a lot of skincare product or hair care products for black people. Are those white people then privileged? So being in the majority of a skin complexion is a privilege? So people living in trailer parks in God knows where, and they go to the shop and they will find their hair products are privileged? They're living in trailer parks, mind you. So, yeah. If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. Okay, again, we all got a sweater knitted by our granny or aunt that wasn't very cringeworthy, but was definitely a bit cringeworthy. But we thanked them nonetheless, and we wore them. And if you have an older brother or sister, be sure that you had hand-me-downs. And I'm not sure why this is a bad thing, but I am sure that there were periods in my life that I was actually embarrassed by this. They gave stuff to me with all the love they had, and it embarrassed me. Fair is fair. It's unfair of me to be embarrassed, but it did embarrass me. So should I take a step back? Wow, this is making it easy for me, because I'm already taking more steps back just based on what you want me to do, but not on what you feel I should do. Because, of course, white people are not embarrassed about the house while growing up. They're not embarrassed about the clothes they are wearing, because mostly they get nice clothes. Yeah, but it doesn't say mostly or on average. It says, were you embarrassed about your clothes? Well, there are clothes I was embarrassed about. Therefore, I should take a step back. Seems a little bit uneven, I know, but that's what they're saying. And we've only done a handful of questions, and already that's not a lot of privilege for me, because where I could take a step back, and where they asked me to put a step forward, I had reasons not to do so. But let's continue. If you can make mistakes and not have people attribute your behavior to flaws in your racial or gender group, take one step forward. Ooh. If people do not think of you in stereotypes, take a step forward. Well, that's the thing with stereotypes. There's one for everyone. So yeah, I mean, if a man makes the wrong decision and therefore is seen as too aggressive, masculine toxicity. Therefore, hey, again, I don't have to take a step forward, because I've heard that used against me. If you can legally marry the person you love, regardless of where you live, take one step forward. Look, I guess this is one from the pages back when it wasn't legal for gay people to marry. It's legal for them to marry. It's legal for interracial to marry. I can't think of any human relationship that isn't legal to marry in the Western world, in most of the Western worlds. So I guess this means everyone can take a step forward. Woohoo! I finally got off the line. I finally had to take a step forward. Well done. If you were born in the United States, take one step forwards. Yeah, because the US is so much better than the UK or Germany or Canada, or, well, this is pretty much blaming people on birth. And what with most of us, well, yeah, they're white if you're born in America. Most of them are white. Well, that fits nicely, doesn't it? But there are also black people born in America. So they should also take a step forward. Mind you, I'm not born in America. So I'm still on just one step. Okay, well, not really on one step, because I could have taken a few step backs. So I only had one step forward. Sorry. If you or your parents have ever gone through a divorce, take one step back. Well, that's nearly everyone right there. And what if your parents or you were never married to begin with, but you did leave your partner? Does it still count? If you or your parents have gone through a divorce, take one step back. Yeah. I can't imagine who isn't. Anyway, if you felt like you had an adequate access to healthy food growing up, take one step forward. Okay, this is where I'm going to be nasty. Because define healthy food. And shouldn't sufficient food also be a marker? I mean, what if I had access to healthy food, but just not enough? And, I mean, there are places in the world where people don't have access to, for example, fast food. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? But maybe I should take my second step forward here. I'm not counting the step backward, but this is my second step forward. If you are reasonably sure you would be hired for a job based on your ability and qualifications, take one step forward. So by this you're saying schooling is privileged? And should we account for affirmative action? Because I know I'm pretty good at my job, but I also know that certain groups can be taken even if I'm better at them, because they need to fill quotas. And I'm not part of this quota. So then I should take a step back, shouldn't I? Because I'm not part of this quota. So schooling is privileged. Affirmative action is privileged. I only have schooling, but affirmative action isn't in my favor. So other people are more privileged than I am. Women and minorities. That's rather not what they were hoping you would think, but that seems to be the case. If you would never think twice about calling the police when trouble occurs, take one step forward. So being scared of the police is something society calls us. And as a man, if you're a victim of domestic violence, doesn't the Duluth model give you reason to fear the cops? After all, the Duluth model basically tells them when the police comes and there's a domestic violence situation, they will take the man out of the situation and perceive them as perpetrator until proven that they're not. But then they're already out of the situation. So as a man, you can actually be taken out of your house because your partner is attacking you. Gives you a reason to be afraid for calling the police, I guess. Well, there you know. I never realized that there's a reason to be afraid of the police. So, nope, not a step forward for me. If you can see a doctor whenever you feel the need, take one step forward. Okay, this is difficult. Do we take into account that when you have to see a doctor, you still have to wait for them? Or that you have to wait for an appointment? Or weekends? Or holidays? Would they take those things into account? I am going to take that step forward though, because in this country, you can see a doctor and then be put on a waiting list for half a year or something. So yeah, I guess I should take a step forward. That's 3. If you feel comfortable being emotionally expressive or open, take one step forward. And this is something where they prove they don't understand personalities. Because if you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you're being oppressed, but they assume you are. If you have ever been the only person of your race, gender, or socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation in a classroom or workplace, please take one step back. And then I'm going to say this. Define race. Define gender. Now, personally, I think men and women, but considering that this is social justice, I have no idea how many genders they have. And for example, if I am the only Canadian in Yale, am I oppressed? If you took out loans for your education, take one step backwards. Now, once again, this is nearly everyone, or at least in the world where I live. And here you prove that money is privilege. After all, white folk need loans too. And what about those people that get a sports grant? For example, people that are good at basketball. Not a lot of white folks among them in America, but they earned it, right? They are good at something. But does that then mean if you earn something, it's privilege? But privilege says it can't be, because privilege is something you're given, not earned. It's a kind of a double one again. But, yep, step backward for me again. I'm not counting step backwards, I'm sorry, but yeah. If you get time off for your religious holiday, take one step forward. So being part of the norm is once again privilege. So if you live in a predominantly Christian country and you're Christian, then you're privileged. How about all those atheists in America? Are they privileged? Well, not just in America, in other countries as well. I mean, I don't get time off for my religious holidays. I don't have any religious holidays, but I surely don't get time off for them. If you had a job during your high school and college years, take one step back. Once again, privilege is money. Because if you had a job, you don't have to take a step forward. No, you can actually go a step back. If you have money, you did not need that job. If you do not have money, you need to work to get money. If you feel comfortable walking home alone at night, take one step forward. Nice question that is. Basically the same one as the sexuality a moment ago. Are you afraid of the area where you live? Well, if you're afraid of the area where you live, you're not privileged. But if you feel the area you live in is safe for you, you are privileged. Or you could be delusional, of course, because feeling safe is not a given, it's just a feeling. I mean, you could feel safe while still be at a dire risk. And how about people who live in certain, how do you call them? Ghettos? But they're part of the predominant gang, and the predominant gang holds the area stable. They're not afraid. So I don't get this. They should take a step forward. Anyway, I don't think anyone should take a step forward in this, because feeling safe or being safe are not quite the same thing. If you ever traveled outside the United States, take one step forward. Woohoo! My fourth step. I never been in the United States, so therefore I must have only been outside of the United States. But it's kind of a silly thing too, because if you went to Canada or Mexico, even though you just live next to the border, you're already privileged. You're just as privileged as those people that go to Monaco for the winters. Doesn't make sense, does it? Not to me anyway. But I have to admit, I traveled outside the United States because I've never been in there. So I'm on 4 steps forward. Everything else was a step back or me standing still. If you have ever felt like there was not an adequate or accurate representation of your racial group, sexual orientation, gender group and or disability group in the media, take one step back. And once again, define racial group. And what is adequate? After all, there are black people that deem Barack Obama as a bad representation of black people. And I know plenty of white folk who would not identify with Trump or Clinton. So this is, again, not really that clear a question. If you feel confident that your parents would be able to financially help, support you if you were going through a financial hardship, take one step forward. Once again, money is privilege. And what if your parents would help you whilst plunging themselves in financial turmoil? Does that count? Or does that not matter? I'm in dubio here, because I know my mother will do whatever she can to help me if I need her financial help. I also know she doesn't have room to help me. Should I then still take a step forward? Because I do feel confident that she would help me. Yeah, you know what? Let's say I'm taking a step forward on this, and I'm on 5 because my mother loves me. If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something that you can't change, take one step back. Okay, again, this is another step for everyone, because everyone has been the target of jokes and of bullying. And being the target of a joke is a way to think of being bullied, I know. And most people don't consider themselves bullied because they don't fit in the victim narrative. But if you look at the factual actions, then yeah, they're victims too. If there were more than 50 books in your house growing up, take one step forward. In the time of computers, doesn't everyone have more than 50 books within their reach if they have a computer? If you studied the culture or the history of your ancestors in elementary school, take one step forward. I learned of white folks, Asian folks, Arabian folks and African folks in elementary school. But I'm pretty sure this is not what you meant. What you're trying to say is, well, you learn predominantly of white people because you live in a white society, therefore you're privileged. Yeah, that's not really fair, mate. This is, again, pandering to a narrative. In any case, I'm not taking a step forward on this one. If your parents or guardians attend college, take one step forward. So your parents took the time to go to school, therefore you are privileged. This is kind of unfair, don't you think? The fact that your parents went to school doesn't mean you learned anything. Anyway, I'm going to say my parents went to school, therefore I have this step forward as well. If you ever went on a family vacation, take one step forward. Even though it could be one town over. But fair enough, 2 steps forward in a row. I'm on 7 now. I didn't count the step back. I know. If you can buy new clothes or go into a diner whenever you want, take one step forward. This one is again money. If you have money, you have privilege. Most white and black peoples don't have this. But those few that are must be privileged. And what if I don't have money because I just bought myself this big ass car? I mean, I got a cool car, but I won't be able to do any restaurants for a few years. Am I no longer privileged because I can't go to a diner when I want to? But I have this cool ass car now, don't I? But I'm no longer privileged. Anyway, I'm not rich enough anyway, so I can't take a step forward on this one. If you were ever offered a job because of your association with a friend or family member, take one step forward. So having a friend that can help you as a segue into a job at Burger King or McDonald's now means you're privileged? If one of your parents was ever laid off or unemployed, not by their choice, take one step back. And how is this not true for everyone? Well, almost everyone. Hell, not only my parents were unemployed at times, I have been unemployed at times. Is this not something that can happen to just about everyone? If you were ever uncomfortable about a joke or a statement you overheard related to your race, ethnicity, gender, appearance, or sexual orientation, but felt unsafe to confront the situation, take one step back. Okay, I'm not going to take a step back on this one either, to be honest. So if you lack a sense of humor, it proves that the others are privileged? Are you sure? Isn't it proof of the victim narrative you're trying to push? I mean, someone made a joke of you, therefore you must feel oppressed. Well, why can't I say someone made a joke of me and I laughed even though I didn't like it, and later I said to someone, you know what? Nah. I mean, I was uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to destroy me. Hell, I know introvert people who can still be the butt of a joke and keep living. Anyway, the original video will be linked at the bottom, and there will be some links there you can find these questions on. And as usual, I of course am very curious as to what you think on the questions themselves and the way I saw them and the answers I gave. I'm thinking about asking BuzzFeed to respond, but by now I know better and it'll be a waste of time waiting for it. But I do like to thank you all for watching. I know this is a pretty long video and I am pretty curious as to what you think of it. Criticism, as always, is more than welcome. And maybe I should cut this movie in half or something, I don't know. Thank you for your time and have a great day.